Hello everyone and welcome back to Imperator Rome. I'm here with a guide on the last of the successors I needed to cover, Thrace. So Thrace is easily the weakest of the major successors. They have, compared to all the other successors, they have a pathetically small amount of population. A good portion of them aren't even Hellenic. A good portion of them aren't even Greek either. It's quite a struggle to play these guys. They are definitely the smallest and weakest of the successors. Yet, at the same time, I find them to be much more interesting to play than someone like Macedon. They do not have a scripted invasion by the Antigonids, but sometimes they still will attack you, at which point there will be an event. But I have successfully stayed out of the successor wars in one of my test runs, so it is possible. So let's quickly go over the starting position of Thrace. Thrace has no allies, although you usually can pick up an ally with Macedon or Epirus, which I honestly recommend Epirus at the beginning. But you have one tribal vassal, and then you have I think it's like 7 or 8 feudatories here, none of which are loyal to you. Just be aware, these guys basically have no loyalty towards you. There's quite a few events at the beginning of the game where your subjects will revolt against you. Your Greek city-states can revolt if enticed, and the Odrissa here will definitely revolt. Usually 2 or 3 times, and then after a handful of months, or you beat their army, they'll beg for peace, and then they'll revolt again. So, Thrace, despite being the smallest of the successors, definitely starts out in one of the worst positions. But they have plenty of good missions to make up for it. Let's quick go over stuff like innovations and obviously starting ideas before we jump into them, because the missions is going to be the large majority of the video. So in terms of ideas, you probably want morale of armies or reinforcement speed and army recovery. In terms of oratory ideas, you either want sanctioned privileges or probably hospitum. This will allow you to actually improve relations with people much higher. You can do the standard successor strategy of trying to convince Greek city-states and stuff to become your subjects through offer feudatory. However, you're going to be not strong enough for quite some time, but that will help when that time comes. More importantly, you can use it to improve relations with your neighbors. See, it'll improve to 50 now. If we took this idea slot, it would go higher. It would go to 66.5. It's not enough to solve this whole problem, but as time goes down from the Diochi rivalry, the odds that you will manage to at least keep them from invading you go up. So it's a very viable choice as Thrace. In terms of innovations, now, I'm just going to quickly show you the religion map. Not even all of your starting area is Hellenic. And if you look at it, almost none of your starting area is, in fact, Macedonian or part of the Hellenistic culture group, which means conversion innovations are probably extremely needed for Thrace. There are a couple ways to obviously do that. The standard one is go straight for open religion here, and then go for proscribed canon here to get the conversion policy laws, turn them on, build a couple great temples, and you will convert the land around you. Be aware, you do have a little bit of land up here. It's not much, but it also has the same problem of no culture and barely Hellenic at all. So that is a very good strategy, especially if you plan on conquering these tribes here rather than trying to get them peacefully. Some people will argue you should conquer them because it will get you significantly more population and land to fight the other successors. On the other hand, you're going to have to deal with culture and religious problems for some time before you could get involved in the successor wars, which means the wonderful CB Legacy of Alexander, that from the Heirs of Alexander DLC, you're not going to be able to use, really. So just be aware that that is one way to go, and I'll talk more about that with the missions. The other thing you could do is you could go down the martial tree here and try and get more discipline, or do the 8-month strategy of getting starting experience and then disbanding your levies to try and go through the Greek tradition trees faster. Since they weaken that, and they'll probably need to weaken it again, probably not my recommendation, but it's really up to you. Another good strategy is to go down the oratory tree and specifically target the ones that give subject opinion increases, among other things, because I have found that trying to keep control of all your feudatories along the Black Sea here, unless you do the mission and you do it quickly, you almost inevitably face revolts, and worse, they don't tend to join you to help you fight wars, which means snagging some of that could be a good thing. If you want to do it that way, transferred citizenship is really good. Thankfully, you can also get 2 AE reductions as well. And then if you go down here, gradual economic integration will allow you to do grand theater, so culture conversions. It gives you the culture conversion building. Also will allow you to get more diplomatic relations, reduce AE. If you really want to go for the strategy of making subjects, you can go down here, spend your first 8 to get more improve opinions, or take a quick detour here and snag this one. Stack it, you could get plus 63% improve opinions from the start, which would help quite a bit. It's kind of up to you. I haven't found this one also will give you, sphere of influence, which if you guarantee small countries, they have a chance to offer to become your subject. Apparently, if they offer to become your subject, they offer to become your feudatory, which means you can get feudatories of other cultures, which is really strong. Unfortunately, there's no one-size-fits-all solution for Thrace. They are really at the crossroads of everything in some ways. The only way it would be worse is if they were sitting in Syria. So it's quite a struggle. You do, thankfully, start with a legion. I do recommend you keep an eye on it because it's right now maxed out, and that is all you get. You don't have the ability to raise any other levies, which means you're stuck with 4,500 troops. By comparison, both the Antigonids and Macedon will be like 20,000 troops without much issue. So the reality is you can't fight either side. Sorry about the noise there. You would have to rely on your subjects because they will bring a couple thousand troops, but they won't join you in your wars for a while. So let's get into... let's quick look over omens. Be aware here, and this is why I'm pointing out, you have a Zalmoxian deity in your pantheon, which means converting people to Hellenic is going to go even slower. So might be a good idea to replace him or her, I don't actually know, him, with Hermes for the commerce income. As always, you want to work on commerce. Sadly, you do not start off with a lot of import routes, but you do start out with 3 provinces that can be improved to give you some good trade, and you have some half-decent trade goods as well. You do have a barbarian power here, but you start out doing monthly civilization change, so it tends to go away pretty quickly. Thankfully, there's no barbarian barbarian encampments like right here, so you can kind of just not worry about that for some time. So let's jump into the mission. So basically, you have 4 options. Really, you only have 3. The Matter of Thrace is not worth doing at the start of the game. It basically is just going to want you to conquer this area and improve things and build buildings, which you can't afford. So don't worry about it. You basically have 3 options. You can do Crossing the Hellespont, which will basically get you to do wars against the Antigonids. You can barely fight. It is possible to do. I've done it. It's super hard. Okay? The Paper Kingdom is to deal with your subject here, Odrissa and Gytia. Gytia will raid you, Odrissa will revolt. These 3 tribal vassals here you have a chance getting on your side. So that's an option. Then the new Phil Hellenic policy is basically trying to keep your subjects here and get more subjects in Greece. Surprisingly, I would say Thrace has probably some of the strongest missions for the successors. which is really strange considering how small they are. So just be aware, they're a very fun country to play. So let's start with the Paper Kingdom, because that might be the one I'd recommend if you're not confident about taking out the Antigonids. So the Paper Kingdom. It will give you manpower recovery and army attrition reductions, and obviously it will tell you all this, blah, 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 blah. So you can start off with multiple missions here. The big one is the Land of the Thracians, which will integrate Odrissan culture. That would be quite useful because about half your land is their culture. So that will keep them more stable. And it will also give you a free integration, which is nice, so you won't lose the stability for it. Then if you have 500 gold, you can improve this capital. And then if after you do that, you get an event that will give you an extra fortress here, and more importantly, improve your fortifications. This is very important because this fort here, which you start with, is not bad. Having one fort there isn't a problem, but it's not going to stop any. It's not going to stop any invading army. So I do recommend you improve it on your own, and then if you get the event, it will obviously go up. The issue is this costs gold, which you need 500 to continue down this mission, but you have 90 days to get that. You're not going to get that easy. Now, Odrissa over here, I assume I'm saying it wrong, will revolt. Once you stop the first revolt, you have two ways to deal with it. One, you can wait till it rebels again, and then you can just conquer it and take it over yourself. At which point, you can destroy their city, and they won't be able to revolt anymore, and you can probably take over their whole country. But you'll lose population. The other way is you could do an unsavory compromise. You lose popularity, political influence, and other things, but they slow down their revolt. And then you can do, if you have 500 gold, be aware that Thrace's missions cost a lot of gold. I don't understand why they have this many gold missions, but they do. If you've got 500 gold, you'll get diplomatic reputation for a short time, which is nice, but more importantly, they won't be able to start further rebellions. Now, below that, you have the tribes of the north, these three of them. If you have taken over Odrissa peacefully, I seem to, at least in my test runs, you tend to be able to get them as a tribal vassal. Obviously, improve relations with them. If need be, send gifts, obviously both costing more gold. The odds are they will join you as a tribal vassal, and then later will convert to client states, which is wonderful. Once you do that, from paper to reality, you should control the lands needed to complete this. You'll get political experience, political influence. You'll get a whole military tradition, which is wonderful, and you'll get popularity. Now, once you've improved the fort here, we'll just continue down this line. If you're at war, you'll get a bonus here. It's not overwhelmingly great. But the big one here is the threat of the Gete. Again, you have a choice between doing war and conquering these lands, which is viable. This is where you would need to have taken the conversion innovations to stabilize the land once you take it. Otherwise, they're going to be forever revolting. But it is a big land grab if you can get it, and it improves opinions with people around you. And then it will also give you further missions to keep expanding your conquests up there, and then you'll get missions to invade Scythia, and then at which point, if you want to, you can conquer the Bosporan Kingdom and this area as well. I see the AI Thrace do this a lot, as a matter of fact. On the other hand, you can simply pay gold, fortify some of these crossings, keep paying more gold to fortify more crossings. At which point, if you complete it, they will no longer be able to raid your lands, and you'll get some tribesmen in your land. It's a good mission. It definitely helps with stabilizing your lands. So let's go over the Finn Hellenic policy, because this is the other option to go. However, this one requires even more gold. There's an option right here that you can pay money to Athens, and they will flip from working for the Antigonids to working for you, which is a nice start for your ambitions in Greek. Sadly, the next ones, you need another 150 gold, but then you may be able to get these guys as your ally. Down here, another 150 gold. You can potentially get Sparta as your ally. By the way, if you want to improve the chances of this, do improve relations first. which is why, I mentioned that you could go down the improve relations idea and then innovation tree, because it will help. If you get both, if you do complete both of those, you can do Champions of the Greek. But more importantly, you can do for 150 political influence, which is high, so you have to build up for it. Thankfully, this gives you 100. You have an option to get every free Greek state in mainland Greece to join a combined Hellenic subject. Obviously, improve relations, create existing alliances any of your subjects will accept. You can create a super mega feudatory here called the Hellenic League, which will help quite a bit. They'll basically be an equivalent country to your starting Thrace, which is funny. At which point you can do personality cult, get some stability, and then if once your founding guy is dead and you have political influence and gold again, he'll be worshipped as the Hellenic deity of culture Zeus, which is very nice, getting a deified ruler. I definitely recommend you do this if you can. You also have this one here. If you've got 1,000 gold, this helps a lot forming the Hellenic League, by the way. If you've got 1,000 gold, all the countries in mainland Greece will get gold and an opinion, which makes it much easier to trigger this. Problem is, you need 1,000 gold to do it. Getting 1,000 gold is quite difficult as a small country, but it's possible, especially if you focus on oratory stuff. In some ways, if you want to do this mission tree, take the innovations that give you trade income, because it will help with that. And then you've got all the events to keep your subjects happy. As usual, you have the option of being aggressive and getting gold from them and making them unhappy with you. And then you can occupy them, and then you can solidify control, at which point you will annex all of them, which is very nice. It's a big growth of your country. The downside is you've just gotten rid of all your feudatories who will probably help you win wars, and you only going to get like 2,000 troops from it, because this counts as mostly 1 or 2 states. You won't get much. As we saw, you only get 4,500 troops from all of this. It doesn't really help much. On the other hand, you have the option to support them, at which point their lands will get improved. For another 300 gold, you'll make them very happy, and at the end, they will no longer consider revolting, and they'll get an opinion modifier of you, and you'll get some free manpower. This makes them loyal. This makes you basically get rid of them. It's kind of a tradition. It seems to be whoever created the Thrace tree kind of did 2 different trees: peaceful for gold, or violent to remove problems as well. So let's abort this one, and I'll show you the last one. This one is the one that gets you involved in the Diachi Wars. It's also the one for which there is an achievement. I'll quickly show you that one. That one is Gazo Flax this. As Thrace killed the ruler of the Antigonid kingdom by completing the poetic justice mission task. That is in the middle of this tree here. We'll get to that in a minute. But basically, you can kill off whoever this is. The problem is you're not going to be able to kill off the founder of the Antigonid kingdom, Antigonus. But you can kill off his son, Demetrius, which is kind of fun. So, this one, you have, again, a peaceful or a violent way. For 500 gold, you can attempt to get the Antigonid states there, highlighted in green, basically right here, to revolt and flip to your side, which is a big power boost. The problem is you still can't fight the Antigonids if you do this. And then you can try and diplomatically expand this way. If you own this, which basically means a war with the Antigonids, you can celebrate Troy, and more importantly, you'll get the cult of Achilles in your pantheon. Achilles' cult is really good. It's worth getting if you can. And if you control Pergamon here, or more area, you can create a client state of Pergamon. It can be nice to subdue this area because it doesn't mean you can't have to keep subduing it. More importantly, subjects can't have rebellions, which means they won't have rebellions, although they can have civil wars, I believe. Which makes keeping control of this region much easier, because this is not Hellenic and it's not of Hellenistic culture. So, again, if you're going to do this, you kind of have to do the conversion laws. Yeah, if you subdue all this area here, you can get forts, and then it'll give you missions to subdue this area as well. On the other side, you have the option of going after Macedon first. If you ally Epirus, you can potentially then, once Cassandros dies, you can invade and attempt to conquer Macedon. Complete this. Pyrrhus and Epirus, assuming it's Pyrrhus, will help you quite a bit. Once you complete this, if you have managed to imprison Demetrius and you have 500 gold, you will kill him. I haven't managed to do it, mainly because I couldn't figure out how to easily imprison him. I assume beat his army in a war. If you're lucky, the Antigonids collapse and they move to Macedon and reform it, at which point you can, invade and conquer them much easier. I assume that's what it's meant to have happen. In my 2 test games, they didn't actually form Macedon, and they kind of survived in their full glory. I got crushed. The other option here is you expand this way a little bit. You have to build 50 ships, again, costing a lot of gold, and have 150 gold, but you can try and get control of Byzantion here, which is, of course, where Byzantium comes from, Constantinople. Then if you're at war with the Antigonids, you can crash this mission. I don't know why both of these have just be at war, but they do. At which point you can Hellenize these, and you can try and convert population to your culture, and you'll get an event, and that will help. And you can fund the war chest here by basically demanding money from these guys. They will hate you, and you'll get tyranny, but you'll get a lot of money. And then if you've got 12 ports on the Aegean, you can fight for the Aegean, and then you can technically get Pontic hegemony, which will get you military experience and a bonus. This tree is nice with the event, but I much rather prefer the Paper Kingdom to start, unless you really want to get involved in the successors. It is possible you can beat Macedon if they're at war with the Antigonids and you have Pyrrhus and maybe like Sparta on your side, but otherwise these guys are going to stomp you. They're twice your population, and they're more than twice your army. I can give you tons of other advice on Thrace, really, because the missions kind of describe it all. There's a reason I basically read the missions to explain some of them to you. You can invade, conquer these areas, but it's much easier to do it diplomatically because these are all subjects of the Antigonids. Kind of sucks. But once you go up here, you can spend the whole game just conquering and subduing this area. It will take you a good portion of the game to convert and subdue this region properly. But if you do, you'll have grown from 200 to 600 population and be equivalent to starting Macedon. Yeah, Thrace is definitely the weakest of the successors in some ways. In other ways, Macedon's weaker because they inevitably get attacked. So think of that as you will. Be aware that you have terrible research at the beginning. So building up your cities here, putting some academies in to get more research, because your research is 41. Get that up higher so you get more innovations. Will help a lot. Besides, you want more research built up now, so once you start conquering and invading non-Macedonian or Hellenic lands, that you keep things stable. My advice, though, is you do the Paper Kingdom, then the Phil Hellenic policy, and then if you really want to, you could attempt to do the mission that involves you beating up the Antigonids and executing their ruler for the achievement. At which point you have to decide where to go. I would focus on Greece as soon as you can to prevent Rome from getting involved at all. You can usually vassalize Epirus, Sparta. If you get the huge feudatory here, that'll give you Greece. If you control Greece here as Thrace, you're in a pretty good position. It's quite easy to invade a collapsed Asia with no Antigonids, and then go after Egypt or the Seleucids to form Alexander's empire. If you're going to do that, definitely go down the oratory tree all the way to the bottom, the left one, to get winning land by the spear, to get imperial challenge war goal, which will make taking their lands much easier. More importantly, it will also keep your subjects much more happier if you go this way, and you can get more. Don't forget legal patronage here and some other of the loyalty stuff. I have surprisingly found that Thrace seems to have fairly loyal people. I don't know why. The Antigonids in Thrace seem to have extraordinary loyal subjects. Not subjects, characters. I can't really figure out why, but they do. It is worth pointing out you do have the bloodline of your founder here. It's cheaper to execute people. You get some diplomatic reputation and some martial skills. It can only be passed along through the male line. So be aware that if you change your laws to allow women to inherit or elective succession, the chance of you keeping that bloodline goes down significantly. In terms of conversion policies, if you do that, probably you want to do religious conversion first and then do cultural dissemination to finally subdue the area. And don't forget that you can give cultures protections and rights while they're not integrated, which will help keep this area loyal, and in some ways will help if you are trying to convert them. That is basically it for Thrace. They're a really interesting country in terms of their missions. They basically have 3 different ways to do it. Gold for diplomacy, deal with the tribes, or get involved in the big wars. So whatever you find interesting, you can do. They're certainly a little interesting country. I don't know if they should have better missions than Macedon and like the Seleucids, but they kind of do. It's quite amusing. I haven't played tons of them. I only did like 5 test games, and 3 of them I got killed. So take that as you will. Mainly it's because the Antigonids didn't collapse in 2 of them, and inevitably they attacked. Also, one time I made the mistake of allying Macedon, at which point I was called to war to fight these guys, and basically Macedon didn't do anything, and I just got wiped out by the Antigonids. So if you're going to fight here, it would be tempting to wait for the forts, but you're much better off putting your army here. In fact, building a fort here would not be amiss. That way anybody attacking you gets a crossing penalty. This is a very defensive point. It's kind of a shame that your capital city isn't on this point to make it more defensive. But also be aware that if they have these guys as subjects, they can also get military access through Byzantion and just march in. However, you can start the game by fabricating claims on these guys and taking the land for yourself, and then fortifying where later Constantinople would be to stop invasions there. The odds of you stopping an Antigonid invasion are close to 0. You can hire mercs. They help, but they don't really solve your problem. So anyway, that's it. Best of luck. Have fun. Try not to die. And see if you can kill off Demetrius, who everybody seems to hate at the beginning of the game. Best of luck. I'll see you guys all in another video. Bye for now.